Hello everybody, Oren here with a quick review of a new microphone from Maono that just came into the studio, the AU-HD 300. Today I'll be looking at this dynamic handheld microphone that is well suited for podcasting, interviews, and vocalists. To be transparent, I was sent this microphone for my impressions, but all the opinions I'm presenting are my own, and Maono will not be reviewing this video prior to publishing. Let's start by opening up the box and see what's inside. The accessories included with the microphone are shock mount, pop filter, weighted metal base, adjustable riser, pop filter attachment stick, XLR cable, USB-C cable. Right away, I get the impression that the Maono is a well-built microphone. It's an all-metal construction with a classic handheld design similar to the AKG D7. The all-metal grille is solid and stiff, and the matte black finish is classy in every environment. The handle has an on-off switch and a large plus and minus button, which can be used to control the system volume or the headphone volume when it's used in USB mode. That brings us to the bottom of the microphone, where you have the recessed gold pin XLR connectors for professional gear, a USB-C connection, and a 3.5mm headphone jack for latency-free monitoring when you're plugged into a computer. The included shock mount will really help dampen any physical bump noises, and the pop filter will help with those plosive B and P sounds. Let's try it out now. Betty Botter had some butter. But, she said, this butter's bitter. If I bake this bitter butter, it would make my batter bitter. But a bit of better butter, that would make my batter better. If you work from home, you probably already appreciate the value of good, clean, and clear audio. I'm sure you've been to many a presentation where you can't hear the presenter very well or can't understand them because there's too much echo or there's noises in the background, and it's just easier to tune them out that way. And a lot of times it's because they're using their laptop or their web camera as the microphone source. And that source is going to be at least a foot away and sometimes further than that. So having a separate microphone closer to the voice is going to work always in your favor, and I'll explain why briefly. If you think of sound waves, they behave a lot like water waves. So if you were to throw a pebble into a pond, the waves diffuse outwards and they get weaker as they do. So obviously further away from that original source, the microphone has to work harder to pick up the sound. And as it brings the gain up, as it brings the levels up, it's picking up all the sounds around it, much more so than when the sound, like my voice being this close to the microphone, can tamp down, it can gain down on all the distracting sounds. In addition, most of the laptop microphones, they're kind of omnidirectional. They pick up sounds from 360 degrees, from all around. A higher quality microphone that is more suited for these applications will have a pickup pattern that is optimized to reject sounds coming from behind it, which is normally where your keyboard or your computer's fans might be, while maximizing the pickup from the area in front, which is where your voice is coming from. So by two factors alone, you've already improved your sound quality tremendously. You physically moved the microphone closer to the source, and you've optimized a pickup pattern that rejects sounds coming from the rear. So if you have a lot of distracting noises in your house when you're doing these calls, a microphone like this will really help tamp those sounds down. For this comparison test, I've set up both microphones on a stereo microphone bar as close as they can be to each other with the pop filters attached. On your right is the M-Audio Nova. It's a large diaphragm condenser microphone, which does require phantom power. And right next to it is the Maono microphone. Both of them are going through XLR into a Zoom H5 recording at 96 kilohertz. And what I'm going to do is read a paragraph from the Filmmaker's Handbook, and I'll read it 3 times. The first time I will be equidistant from both mic capsules and about 5 inches away. And then I'll read it again, centered to each mic individually, but closer so you can hear the proximity effect and how it affects at least my voice in particular. Analog audio recording. In simplest terms, the idea of analog recording is to convert sound energy in the air to magnetic energy, which can be stored on tape. When the tape is played back, the process is reversed to reproduce sound. Analog audio recording. In simplest terms, the idea of analog recording is to convert sound energy in the air to magnetic energy, which can be stored on tape. When the tape is played back, the process is reversed to reproduce sound. Analog audio recording. In simplest terms, the idea of analog recording is to convert sound energy in the air to magnetic energy, which can be stored on tape. When the tape is played back, the process is reversed to reproduce sound. What's as equally important to me as the sound coming from the front of the capsule is how well these microphones reject noise coming from behind the capsule. So what I'm going to do now is a test where I'm going to rifle through the pages of that book that I just read, and I'll still be talking so you can hopefully hear how well it's rejecting the sounds coming from the back, which typically would be keyboard typing sounds or any kind of background distracting sounds that you don't want. So let's just rifle through here. And while we're still talking and flipping the pages, and it's a bit noisy, obviously you should be able to hear something, but ideally the rejection coming from the back of the capsule means that my voice is still coming through clear, even with these distracting page-turning noises. Okay, so what I've done here is opened up the audio file recorded from the two microphone comparison, and we've got on the top channel the M-Audio Nova microphone, and on the bottom channel, the Maono microphone. And we're going to take a look at a few things. And let's start off with if I zoom in here, we're going to start off by looking at a section of silence. So right about here, I'm just going to sample this and see what the noise floor is. So I'm going to go over to scan selection on the amplitude statistics, and we can see that the left channel and right channel are displayed over here. We've got a loudness of minus 51 decibels on the M-Audio Nova and minus 66.19 decibels on the Maono, which means the noise floor is lower on the Maono microphone. Now, that could be due to a couple of different factors. It could be gain related if the gain was set differently on these, but we could see that both of these, looking at the waveform, the gain is pretty similar, so that's not the issue here. So we're going to investigate a little bit further and see what the cause of that is by going to the spectrogram here. And if we look on the spectrogram, we see a visual representation of the energy in each frequency, ranging from almost 0 hertz to a maximum of 20,000 hertz, which is above the range of human hearing, but it's still got information in there. So let's take a look at the silence section again over here. We're going to zoom into this portion of silence that we sampled previously. And what we see on the top channel on the M-Audio microphone is that you have more information in the very low frequencies. Let's zoom into the frequency range down below 400 hertz and just see exactly how much we're dealing with here. So you'll see the red and orange and yellow here that starts at 100 hertz and down is greater on the left channel, which remember is the M-Audio, than the right channel, which is the Maono microphone. So the Maono microphone is cutting off some of the frequencies below, it looks like 60 hertz, whereas there's a little bit more information in the M-Audio microphone. Whether that's good or not, that's up to you. If you're capturing sounds that have a particularly lot of information in the lower registers and lower frequencies, you might want something that's more sensitive down there. But typically, we use a high-pass filter or a roll-off filter on the low frequencies to eliminate some of this low rumble that would normally come out, typically below 80 hertz or so, is information that you don't want in the human voice, but you might want it in some lower register instruments. Let's zoom back out once again. And let's look at the rest of the frequency here. We'll go to another portion here. And let's take a look at the high register now. So they look very similar, obviously, which is decent. But you'll notice that if we zoom in to the high register here, the left channel audio reaches and sometimes exceeds 20,000 hertz, which, as I mentioned before, it's above the range of human hearing. So you wouldn't typically hear anything above 16,000 hertz. But just know that there is information higher than there that is being captured, in this case by the M-Audio. And whereas in the right channel down below, we've got a hard cut. It looks like 16K. Maybe just add a little bit more over here, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's less sensitive to those ranges, and it's not likely that you're going to be using this as a crash cymbals mic or something where you will have frequencies that can exceed 16,000 hertz. So for human hearing, this is perfectly adequate, and you wouldn't need much more than this. If you're a vlogger, vocalist, musician, or just using this for daily Zoom meetings, I think you'd have a hard time finding a better value than the Maono AU-HD 300T microphone. As a hybrid microphone, it's got some fantastic features. It's easy to use, plug-and-play compatible, and it just looks great on your desk as well. Nice solid build quality, good clean audio. I don't think you can go wrong. So if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below.